Welcome. This video is going to actually give you the help you need to understand the forgotten concept of first principle and how to apply it to your everyday life. This is not motivational fluff. This is an actual concept that the 1% use to strategize their business outlines, become more time efficient, and successfully grow business empires. This is how Elon built Tesla first, then the rest of his empires. This is how Jeff Bezos created Amazon. This concept comes from the era of the great philosophers Socrates and Plato and has been around thousands of years. Now that you understand what you are in for, let's begin. Let me tell you something I wish someone had told me before I built my first business, before the exits, before the boardrooms, before the failures that nearly gutted me. Most people don't think. They repeat. They recycle ideas. They live out habits they didn't choose. They follow systems they never questioned. They think they're being logical, but they're not. They're just working off other people's assumptions. That's not thinking. That's copying. And in business, in life, in leadership, copying is the fast track to irrelevance. Now listen, I've built companies. I've hired teams. I've negotiated deals at midnight in cities you've never heard of. And one thing I've learned over and over again is this. The people who rise are the ones who learn to think from the ground up. Not from the headlines, not from the trends, from the foundation. That's what first principles thinking is. It's how I went from bleeding money in my first startup to building a portfolio that now earns 7 figures while I sleep. It's how I stopped chasing tactics and started mastering strategy. It's how I stopped reacting and started building. Let me explain. First principles. Thinking means you break a problem down to its fundamental truths. No assumptions, no inherited ideas, just the raw essential facts. It's how Socrates thought. It's how Musk builds rockets. It's how I build scalable, sustainable systems that don't collapse when the market shifts. Let me give you an example. Say you're launching a new product. Everyone tells you, you need a website, social media, ads, influencers, a funnel. That's playbook thinking. That's borrowed strategy. Now let's think from first principles. What are you really trying to do? You're trying to get a specific solution into the hands of people with a specific problem. So you ask, what problem are they facing? Where do they already go to solve it? What triggers their decision to buy? What trust do I need to earn before they act? And suddenly, you're not following a playbook. You're designing from clarity. That's how you create leverage. That's how you create something no one else can replicate. This isn't theory. This is how I turned a software company that was going nowhere into a multi-million-dollar B2B platform with recurring contracts and zero ad spend. Because I stopped doing what was standard, and I started thinking from the first principle. What does the customer actually need? And what's the fastest path to deliver it? Most people won't do this. They're too attached to their assumptions. They want to look smart more than they want to be smart. So they follow the crowd, launch what's safe, and play defense their whole lives. You can't afford to live like that. Let me break it down even further. Let's say you're stuck in your career. You hate what you're doing, but you think, I can't leave. I need the money. I need the benefits. That's inherited thinking. That's a mental prison built from fear, not fact. So what do? We go back to the root. What is money? A tool for exchange. What's your real need? Stability, freedom, meaning. Is your current job providing that number? No. What's stopping you from building a bridge out? Usually, identity, fear, comfort. The truth is this. You're not trapped. You're just untrained in thinking from zero. If you can get to zero, if you can strip away all the noise and say, what do I know for sure? Then you can build a path forward. Let's go one more layer. Let's talk about time. People tell me all the time, I don't have time. I hear that from executives, founders, freelancers. I used to say it myself. But here's what I realized. Time is not the issue. Clarity is. When you're unclear, everything feels urgent. When you're clear, you realize 90% of what's on your calendar is noise. So here's how I do it. When I feel overwhelmed, I don't ask, how can I do more? I ask, what actually moves the needle? What's the root cause of this overwhelm? Where am I being reactive instead of intentional? 9 times out of 10, I'm trying to solve a problem at the branch level, when what I need is to dig down to the root. You see, thinking from first principles isn't just a philosophy. It's a discipline, and it pays better than any MBA. Now, let me give you something you can use right now. A quick model I teach my team. When you're faced with a decision or challenge, ask, what are the assumed truths here? What do I know that can be proven? What variables can I control? If I had to build this solution from scratch, what would I do? Those 4 questions have saved me millions of dollars and made me millions more. It forces you to cut the fat. It forces you to stop following and start thinking. And in business, the person who can think most clearly wins. So let me ask you straight. Are you building your life, your business, your future on your own understanding? Or are you just stacking other people's strategies on a foundation you've never examined? Because I promise you this. If you build on assumptions, it will collapse. But if you go back to the foundation, if you ask better questions, if you think like a founder, a builder, a first principle leader, you can outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast just about anyone. And the best part? You don't need more money, you don't need more degrees, you don't even need more time. You just need to learn to think clearly. Clarity isn't a nice to have. It's not some motivational buzzword. It's the most valuable currency in business and in life. Clarity is what makes the difference between spinning your wheels for 5 years and executing one idea that changes your net worth forever. But here's the problem. Most people are busy trying to look successful before they ever sit down and define what success even means to them. They chase metrics that don't matter. They mimic strategies that don't fit. They say yes to everything and dilute the one thing that could move the needle. Why? Because they haven't done the work of getting to the root. They haven't asked the most important first principle question of all. Who am I building this for? And more importantly, who do I want to become by building it? Your identity drives every decision you make, not your goals, not your ambition, your identity. Because you will never outperform the person you believe yourself to be. This is where it gets uncomfortable. Because if you don't challenge your identity, if you don't redefine yourself with intention, then you will always build businesses, relationships, and habits that keep you right where you are. I know this firsthand. There was a time when I was making high 6 figures and still felt like an imposter in the boardroom. Still playing small, still holding back my ideas. Why? Because deep down, I still saw myself as the underdog, the outsider, the guy who got lucky instead of the guy who belonged. And as long as that was my internal story, my outer results stayed stuck. But when I sat down and stripped it all back, I asked, where did that identity come from? Who gave me this narrative? What would change if I stopped negotiating with it? That's what first principles thinking really is. It's not just asking what works. It's asking what's true. What's the actual reality beneath the noise? And when I redefined my identity, when I said, no more playing small, everything shifted. I made decisions faster. I raised my prices. I walked into rooms I used to avoid, because now I wasn't building from fear, I was building from clarity. And that clarity came from thinking like an engineer. Let me show you what I mean. Most people approach problems like artists with no canvas, just throwing paint, hoping something sticks. But I approach life like I'm designing a system. Every belief is a blueprint. Every habit is a code. Every outcome is a result of a system that's either working or broken. So when something's not working in your life, don't panic. Diagnose it, strip it down, ask, what's the real constraint here? Is it time? Number time is equal for everyone. Is it talent? Number talent's overrated. Is it clarity, alignment, belief? Chances are it's a design flaw in your thinking. That's what first principles allows you to do. It allows you to design from scratch, without emotion, without assumption. It's how I scaled my second company in half the time it took to build my first. Not because I worked harder, but because I worked clearer. Now, let's talk about vision. If clarity is your foundation, then vision is your blueprint. And I'm not talking about vague dreams or vision boards full of cars and yachts. I'm talking about strategic, calculated, conviction-driven vision. The kind of vision that can stand up in a storm. The kind of vision you'd still chase even if it took 10 years. Here's how I think about it. Your vision needs to be two things: rooted in truth, bigger than your comfort. Truth means it aligns with your first principles. It's not about ego, status, or comparison. It's about solving a real problem you actually care about, something worth waking up for. Bigger than comfort means it should scare you. If it doesn't stretch you, it won't grow you. If it doesn't require new systems, new skills, new levels of leadership, then it's not a real vision. It's just a fantasy. And when you combine clarity of identity with a rooted, uncomfortable vision, now you're dangerous. Now you're not chasing opportunities. You're creating them. Because you know who you are. You know where you're going. And more importantly, you know what doesn't belong. That's the kind of focus that makes people uncomfortable. That's the kind of energy that attracts the right investors, the right team, the right market. You want to know why most people fail in business? It's not lack of talent. It's not capital. It's not even competition. It's confusion. Internal confusion that manifests as external chaos. They're unclear on who they are. Unclear on what matters, unclear on what they're building and why they're building it. But when you operate from first principles, when you think from the truth, not from the trend, everything gets simpler. It's not always easier, but it's simpler. And in complexity, simplicity becomes a competitive edge. So if you're stuck right now, don't hustle harder, get clear, strip it back, start from zero, because I'll tell you the truth most people don't want to hear. If your life is complicated, your thinking probably is too. But when you simplify your mind, when you think in root-level truths, you build a foundation that doesn't crack when pressure comes. And in business, pressure will come. Markets shift, people leave, plans fall apart. But first principles, they hold. Because truth always holds. Let's get one thing straight. Success is not built on intensity. It's built on consistency. Anyone can grind for a week. Anyone can show up when they're inspired. But the people who win, the ones who really build something that lasts, they know how to execute whether they feel like it or not. And that comes down to discipline. But not the kind of discipline people like to romanticize. I'm not talking about waking up at 4 a.m. to prove you're tough. I'm talking about something much deeper. The kind of discipline that's born from clarity. The kind that kicks in not because someone's watching, but because you've already decided who you are. That's the discipline I live by. That's the discipline I build companies with. And here's what I've learned. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Goals give you direction. Systems give you results. If you're not hitting your targets, don't look at your ambition. Look at your infrastructure. What systems are in place to support your success? What routines, what rhythms, what non-negotiables? And most importantly, are they built around truth or built on borrowed habits? I see this all the time in young entrepreneurs. They set massive goals, $10,000 a month, $100,000 a month, and they think wanting it badly is enough. It's not. Ambition is cheap, execution is expensive, and most people never pay the full price. So, what do I tell them? I tell them, stop trying to do more. Start designing better. Think like an engineer. If your output is broken, your input probably is too. If you're not getting results, you're not disciplined. You're undisciplined in your systems. Let me show you how this works. Take your morning routine. Don't ask, what's the perfect routine? Ask, what's the most essential function my morning needs to serve? Clarity. Focus, momentum. That's it. Then reverse engineer that. What gives you clarity? Planning, stillness, writing. What gives you momentum? Movement, progress, energy. Now build that. Not what Instagram tells you, not what some productivity guru says. Build the system you need based on your first principles. Same goes for your business model. Don't ask, what niche is hot? Ask, who do I want to serve? What problem do they have that I care about solving? How can I deliver a solution more efficiently, more elegantly, more profitably than anyone else? And then, discipline yourself to scale that system. Because listen, creativity is how you grow. Discipline is how you sustain. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you can't build systems, you'll burn out before you ever hit your stride. That's where resilience comes in. You want to know how I've survived recessions, team implosions, product flops, and legal battles? Not by being the smartest, not by being the loudest, but by being resilient by design. Resilience is not about being hard. It's about being prepared. Let me explain. When a storm hits, the trees that snap aren't always the weakest. They're the ones that were too rigid to bend. Your ability to bend, to adapt, to pivot, to absorb the shock and redirect it, that's real strength. But again, it's not something you magically tap into when things go south. It's something you build into your systems. Let me give you an example. During a downturn, cash flow slows. People panic. They cut the wrong things. They slash marketing. They fire their best people. They destroy future value for short-term survival. But I've seen founders who anticipated disruption, who had 6 months cash in reserve, who diversified income streams when things were good, who didn't just hope the market would stay stable. They designed their company assuming it wouldn't. That's not luck. That's not fear. That's first principles thinking. You want to build a body that performs under pressure? Don't wait until you're burnt out. Build recovery into the system. You want a team that thrives through uncertainty? Don't just hire talent. Build culture, build trust, build shared clarity of mission. This is the truth. The most resilient systems are the ones that are built with stress in mind, not avoided, not ignored, anticipated. And when you design for resilience, you don't just survive setbacks. You absorb them, learn from them, and accelerate because of them. Now let's talk about something most people avoid: failure. People fear failure because they believe it says something about them. They tie results to identity. If something doesn't work, they take it personally. But that's not first principles. That's emotional thinking. When something fails in my business, I don't ask, "What's wrong with me?" I ask, "What's wrong with the design? Was the market misread? Was the value unclear? Was the system untested? Did the feedback loop break down?" I treat failure like an engineer treats a prototype, not as a reflection of worth, but as a feedback mechanism. Because if you learn fast enough, failure becomes fuel. And in business, the one who learns fastest wins. I've failed more times than I can count, but I never stayed down, because I never let a broken result become a broken identity. That's the mindset I want you to build. Not, "I failed," but, "Something didn't work. Let's improve the system." That's first principles leadership. That's how you become anti-fragile. That's how you don't just play the game, you change it. Let me tell you one of the biggest lies floating around in business circles. The smartest person wins. No, the most adaptable person wins. Every time. You don't succeed in business because you have all the answers. You succeed because you build systems that keep asking better questions. Because when things change, and they will, the rigid fall apart. The reactive go broke, but the adaptable, they bend, reframe, move fast, reposition. They don't rely on being right, they rely on staying aware. I learned this the hard way. One of my companies was scaling fast, profitable, lean, growing month over month. Then one update, one algorithm change from a platform we didn't own, and we lost half our traffic overnight. But we didn't panic. We pivoted. Why? Because we were built for it. We didn't depend on one tactic. We had mental models, decision trees, contingency plans. We treated our business like a living organism, not a fixed machine. That's first principles thinking in the real world. It means asking, what's permanent? What's volatile? What do I control? What's external? What signal matters and what's just noise? And then, building a system that learns. Because if you're not learning, you're guessing, and guesswork doesn't scale. This is where most people fall off. They read a few books, take a course or two, build something half-baked, and then stop evolving. They get stuck in yesterday's knowledge. Let me make this clear. In today's world, learning is not a luxury. It's a responsibility. Not because it makes you smarter, but because it keeps you dangerous. I don't mean memorizing. I don't mean hoarding information. I mean learning how to learn. I've sat in rooms with billionaires. The one thing they all have in common? They're obsessed with learning. Not because they want credentials, but because they want leverage. See, mental leverage is what separates effort from impact. It's how you do less and accomplish more. It's how you build a $10 million company with a lean team instead of chasing scale with complexity. Because when you know the one truth that changes the entire strategy, you don't need more resources. You become the resource. This is why I'm not impressed by hustle anymore. I'm impressed by clarity plus execution plus mental leverage. Because anyone can burn out grinding 16 hours a day. But show me the founder who thinks clearly, adapts instantly, and learns faster than anyone else. That's the one who's going to own the market. And that brings me to this final truth. Everything we've talked about, from clarity to vision to resilience to systems to adaptability, it all comes back to one central principle. You are the architect, not of your business, not of your brand, of your thinking. And if you don't engineer your thoughts will engineer you. If you don't strip assumptions to the root, if you don't question every inherited idea, if you don't build mental systems that challenge noise with truth, then you are building your life on sand. And in this economy, this world, this fast-moving landscape, sand won't hold. So here's what I want you to do. Don't just take notes. Don't just nod along. Take inventory. Ask yourself, what beliefs am I operating on that I've never questioned? What assumptions are silently running my business, my decisions, my identity? What systems am I relying on that were never built to handle where I'm going? And then, rebuild. One belief at a time. One system at a time. One clear, aligned, strategic action at a time. Because that's how real success is built. Not from hype, not from hustle, from clarity, from conviction, from the first principles that don't shake when the pressure comes. You want to rise? Start at the root. Strip away everything that isn't real. Build what's true, and then execute relentlessly. You don't need more time. You don't need more motivation. You need to think clearly, act decisively, and commit completely. You don't need to be everything. You just need to be certain. Certain of who you are. Certain of why you're building. Certain of the principles you stand on. Because if you build from truth, then no matter what breaks, you don't. And in a world that's addicted to shortcuts, the one who builds from first principles will always go further than the one who copies the surface. So build deep, think clear, move fast, and never, ever stop asking, is this true? That's where everything starts. That's where you start, from the first principle.